Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the House Republican Annual Issues Conference. Yesterday, we discussed the political landscape and growing our House Republican majority. Today, we are focused on covering the key issues facing communities across the country. The American people understand that Joe Biden continues to turn his back on we the people. Joe Biden's failed State of the Union address exposed an unfit leader promoting his failed far-left policies that are leaving Americans behind, creating crisis after crisis. A case in point, Joe Biden apologized for using the term illegal to describe the illegal immigrant who murdered Laken Riley, a young innocent nursing student. Yet Joe Biden couldn't even pronounce her name correctly. As a mother and as a conservative leader myself, this leaves me speechless. Joe Biden clearly could care less about how his policies are destroying American families and creating a crisis across our country. Under just 3 years of Joe Biden's far-left leadership, our nation has faced crisis after crisis. American families are forced to make hard decisions between putting food on the table or gas in the tank due to the highest inflation in my generation's lifetime. Violent crime is destroying our cities, and open borders is allowing millions of illegal immigrants to invade our country, bringing illicit fentanyl and crime to our streets. Because of the unified and disciplined messaging of this Republican conference with all the members of our conference, we have held Joe Biden's administration accountable for his failed policies. And we have driven Joe Biden's poll numbers on the key issues facing hardworking Americans, whether it's immigration, the economy, crime, and national security. Those poll numbers have plummeted. Unlike Joe Biden, the House Republican Conference is committed to delivering common sense solutions that bring results to the American people. We are the final line of defense to protect American people's freedom, secure our border, and restore the American dream. And with that, I'll turn it over to our whip, Tom Emmer.
Thank you, Elise. The American people elected a Republican House majority at the first chance they were given to put a stop to Joe Biden and the Democrats' failing agenda. And thanks to the hard work of our members, we were able to beat the odds and deliver on some of our conservative, common sense priorities in 2023. We passed core pieces of legislation addressing Americans' top concerns, such as the Lower Energy Costs Act and the Parental Bill of Rights. We passed a historic border security bill that does 5 things: finishes the wall, reforms parole authority, reforms the asylum authority, ends catch and release, and restores Remain in Mexico. When Joe Biden and Chuck Schumer were too busy pointing fingers, our majority has governed by passing a transformational debt ceiling bill that reins in Washington's reckless spending without letting us default on our debt. We also made history by passing the first Republican-only NDAA, fighting against a woke Defense Department agenda while investing in our troops and our strategic capabilities. House Republicans have proven that we can and will continue to govern on behalf of the American people. Joe Biden and Democrats, however, have proven that their only priority is appeasing the far-left members of their party. Look no further than last week when Americans witnessed the most divisive State of the Union address in modern history. What was supposed to be a unifying outline of the president's vision for our country, it was nothing more than a partisan campaign speech used to further splinter America and Americans. Americans are sick of Joe Biden's blame games and refusal to take responsibility for the crises he has created. The next 9 months will be spent working tirelessly to remind our constituents why they elected us in the first place. When we focus on teamwork, communication, and respect, we deliver common sense wins that we promised. With our slim majority, we'll continue to work with every corner of our conference to advance our conservative agenda. I look forward to the challenge. And with that, I turn it over to our leader, Steve Scalise.
All right, thank you, Whip. Good to see all of you out here in West Virginia as Republicans in the House come together to talk about our agenda for the rest of this year. It's been a very busy Congress, and if you look at, with a slim majority, the things we've already been able to achieve, and my colleagues have already touched on it. major policy initiatives that we've come together to pass, whether it was with a 5-seat majority or a 2-seat majority, or now maybe by next week a 1-seat majority, we still have been able to find a way to fight for those hardworking families who are sick and tired of the far left agenda of Joe Biden and his allies in Congress that have risen costs for so many things. We focused on energy, passing H.R. 1 to lower energy costs for families, whether it's pumping gas at the gas station or when you pay your household electricity bill. People know they're paying too much because of the far left agenda here in Washington to pursue a radical agenda that makes no sense for America, shutting down American energy while President Biden flies to Saudi Arabia and begs them to produce more energy, while President Biden lowers penalties against countries like Iran so they can sell their oil on world markets, making tens of billions of dollars that they never would have made before. To fund terrorism. Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism, funding terrorist organizations like Hamas that attack our allies like Israel. Why would you want to allow them to make more money producing energy when we should be the world's dominant energy producer? Yet Joe Biden's gone in the opposite direction. In fact, next week on the House floor, we're dedicating the week to what we're going to call Energy Week, bringing bills on the House floor next week that will promote American energy to lower costs for families who recognize this. They know there's no reason they should be paying more for energy and benefiting countries like Russia. When Joe Biden does a ban on LNG exports, as in essence he did, it hurts LNG production in America, but it emboldens countries like Russia. Why would you want to help Putin fund his war machine by giving him more leverage over Europe when we were providing LNG in America to our friends in Europe? These are the decisions that Joe Biden has been making unilaterally that are hurting American families here at home and hurting our allies abroad. And then, of course, with border security, we passed H.R. 2, the strongest border security measure Congress has seen in decades. And we asked Democrats to join with us. They chose not to. Every single Democrat voted against the bill in the House that would secure America's border because they want an open border. But American families don't want an open southern border. They want to get this under control because they see the crime, the decimation, the murders like Blake and Riley that shouldn't be happening. Except Joe Biden, using his own executive power, took action on his own to open that southern border. And we're going to continue to fight for those families the rest of this Congress, however slim our majority may be, because we've shown that we can come together, sometimes in ways where Democrats won't join us, but days like yesterday, where we're all able to come together to pass a bill dealing with TikTok and confronting the threat that China poses to the data, the privacy of over 150 million Americans. Over 84% of the House voted for that bill yesterday, Republican and Democrat, and hopefully the Senate will take it up quickly as well, to say we're not going to let China have access to the personal data of over 150 million Americans. I thought it was another bright day where this House Republican majority is leading the fight for those families who are struggling. And leading our effort in the House is our Speaker, who has been, again, as slim as the majority may be, finding a way to get it done. Speaker Mike Johnson.
Thanks, Steve. Good morning to everybody. Thank you again for being with us. A little cooler than it was yesterday. A few weeks ago, or actually last week, exactly a week ago, it seems like an eternity now, we were preparing for Biden's State of the Union, and sadly the president just tried to spin his record of failure. That's what was so frustrating about it. Ultimately, what we heard as his priorities last Thursday night stood in sharp contrast to what House Republicans are fighting for every day and what the American people demand and deserve. We're passing legislation to secure our border, that's H.R. 2 that everybody knows about, and deport criminal aliens, including those who commit DUIs and theft, such as the illegal alien who ultimately murdered Laken Riley. There are more Laken Rileys now around the country. There are other atrocities, violent crimes being committed by illegals who are here and who have been distributed by the Biden administration around the country into every state. We're breaking the omnibus tradition, of course, and we're working to get Congress back to regular order. The budgeting and spending process is a big part of that. We passed a bipartisan tax package to help American families and small businesses. It ends wasteful COVID-era program of spending taxpayer billions. It cuts red tape for small businesses. It expands on the successes of the Trump-era tax cuts. We passed legislation to restore American energy independence, as Steve was talking about, and boost production of critical minerals. That was H.R. 1. We're standing up to communist China. And of course, as was mentioned, we just passed the big bipartisan legislation that will make TikTok sever ties with the CCP. We've taken the first step to begin addressing our unsustainable spending. And as I say to my conference, this isn't a time of divided government and a time of this, literally the slimmest margin in U.S. history. It's not the time for long Hail Mary passes on every play, but it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust. This is an incremental thing that we have to do to change Washington and how it works. Republicans control right now just 1/2 of 1/3 of the federal government. So major conservative wins are not easy to come by, obviously, but we are delivering for the American people nevertheless. House Republicans will continue to fight for policies that help our economy, secure our border, cut spending, unleash American energy production, and help hardworking families and counter our adversaries like China. President Biden can continue to try to spin his record, but it is a record of failure and not success. And everybody in this country knows that. They feel it acutely. It doesn't matter where you live, what you do for a living, what zip code you're in, you feel this, and you know that you are not in better shape now than you were 3 years ago. They know House Republicans are fighting for them, and that message is resonating, and we'll continue to share that message in every venue and every place around the country as our candidates and our incumbents are out sharing all this good news about what we're doing. So we'll yield to a couple questions if y'all have any. Front row.
Can you give us an update as to when you'll bring the articles against Secretary Merrick to the Senate?
Yeah, we talked about the impeachment articles a little bit yesterday. The investigation has been slow and deliberate and methodical, as it must be on the Constitution. I referenced yesterday, I understand and I think about this all the time, what a heavy power that is that the House is given specifically in the Constitution, and how it needs to be very careful and deliberate. We did pass the articles of impeachment on Mayorkas out of the House, and that is awaiting the Senate trial. We've not sent it over yet, and the very simple answer for that and the reason for it is because we're in the middle of funding the government in the appropriations process. And the way the procedure works is once the articles of impeachment are transmitted to the Senate, they have a short window within which to process them. So we didn't want to interrupt the Senate in their floor time and their deliberation on appropriations because we would risk shutting the government down. So it will be done in due course as soon as we wrap that process up, and I think the appropriations process is very close to being wound down. Yes, ma'am.
Yesterday, Congressman Molinaro signed on to Congresswoman Susan Wild's bill to protect IVF. You have a couple other members that have withdrawn their name from the Life and Conception Act over concerns that it might create a legal problem for this procedure that so many Americans rely on. I know you said that you don't think Congress has a role here, but do you think, especially given the broader conversation about abortion and reproductive rights, that the conference needs to take on this issue somehow and put its mark on it? And how do you deal with that?
It's not my belief that Congress needs to play a role here. I think this is being handled by the states. Look, we support access to IVF. I believe personally, this is my personal belief, in the sanctity of life. And we know, Kelly and I know many families, beautiful families that were created with the use of that technology is what it is. We need to do it ethically and well, and I think the states are handling that well. But it's something that we should protect access to, and I think every Republican is committed to that idea. Life is a beautiful thing. I think the estimate is about 8 million babies have been born because of IVF since its creation in the late 70s, and that's a remarkable thing, and it's something we ought to protect and preserve, and I think our party is certainly committed to that. Back row. We haven't addressed it yet as a leadership team, but we'll look at it carefully. Obviously, I mean, the government has responsibility to take care of those who've been harmed by the government's action as a general premise, but we have to look at the details of that piece of legislation as we do every one, and we'll process it in time. We're going to wrap this up because we're going into this session, and I'm making the big team speech to everybody in just a few moments, so I got to go get ready for that. But My message, Scott, is for us to stand together. Look, we're in I'll say this, and this is what I'll begin with them. Everyone says the next election cycle is the most important one of our lifetimes. We're all accustomed to saying that. We say it every election cycle. Everybody knows this one truly is for all the marbles. We have entire industries, sectors in the economy facing existential threats to their existence. We have the world is a tinderbox right now because our stature on the world stage has been diminished by this administration and Democrats who've empowered it. We have crime rising throughout the country, and inflation is through the roof. The cost of living is not sustainable for American families. There's so many problems. And so the job of the people in that room in there, the House Republicans as the majority, is a heavy responsibility, but one that we take seriously and we're going to carry well. And we have to stand together, stick together, get the job done, deliver for the American people. And I'm absolutely convinced that we do that, they're going to expand our House majority, give us the Senate, and the Republicans will take the White House as well. And then we will all be in a much better mood next January because the agenda will change 180 degrees. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you later today.